Okay, so this is what I would do, what I maybe would not do if I was a music student now, getting ready to graduate and start my career as a professional musician. Number one, pay your rent, or pay your rent first. So what I mean by that is the practical translation of that for most people is to get a job of some kind that can just pay your base rent, your basic expenses, so that you know you're covered. That's probably step one, because without that, you're not even going to have the headspace to think. You're not going to have the freedom to even do the stuff that's actually going to move your career forward, because you're going to be stressed about money and you're going to have to take any and everything that comes your way in order to pay the bills. So along with that first point, it would probably be minimizing monthly expenses as much as possible. Anywhere you don't need to be extravagant with your money, cut down eating out if you can. If it's not a networking thing, cut it down, cut it out. If you can still live at home with your family and you're not paying rent, stay there as long as you can. And then don't be like 19, 20-year-old version of myself and go out and buy a new car and then strap yourself down with 200-300 pound a month payment for something that 3 years from now is going to hold you back. That's all gone, it's paid off and all of that now. But if I was going back again, definitely wouldn't do it that way. And it's funny because when I bought that car, I actually had a full-time job. I was working a full-time job. I was earning well actually for my age, and then with the music on top. So at the time I made the decision to buy the car, it was a great decision. There was no financial implication. It limited me later on. It limited me when I wanted to leave that job to take other risks, other moves with my music career. It limited me with freedom of other decisions, and it's just that constant, you have to earn, it bumps up the base rate of what you have to earn consistently, because the chances are most of us, you're not going to earn 4 figures off with your creative career straight away. And even if you get into good periods, which is what we'll probably get on and talk about at another time, you can be on a show for 2-3 years, you can have the best tour in the world, you can have a strong 5 years, and then when that ends, you're maybe not back to square one, but you're at zero in terms of income, because you don't know where that next step of income is coming from, and you've not necessarily built up other sources or fields that you can pull from. Okay, and that leads nicely on to number 2, which is networking. Okay, get networking. For most people, the benefit of going to jam nights and other gigs is going to be to network with other people, as opposed to playing, as opposed to trying to show that you can play. That's being a great player is no good. It's useless if no one knows you exist. And the people who are doing the gigs that are paying, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean artist work, which is a conversation for another day. But they need to know you exist, and your name needs to come up in that room, in that circle, to even have a shot of getting that kind of work. So my core focus stepping out of uni would be making sure rent is paid, having some bare expenses covered with whatever that job may be. Extra points if it's flexible in terms of hours, extra points again if it's something creative that you can dip your toe into. But I'd probably actually now pick something strategically slightly left of center. So I'm giving myself another skill set or asset that I can pull from if the music side gets quiet. What's the benefits of networking? And maybe how do we do it better? There's a book called, I think it's The Last Guide to Prospecting You Ever Need by Bob Berg. That book there, it basically gives you a formula. It spells it out for you. It's coming from a network marketing space, but the tips, the skills are exactly the same. It even gives frameworks for conversations and questions you can ask people to actually gain their trust, earn their trust, and just not look like someone that's trying to sell them something, not come across as someone that just wants something from them, but actually you're out here now to provide value for them. So when you set out to help other people, you'll get so much more back in return. And his whole principle, another book to recommend is Go Giver by Bob Burg, is that basically when you care about other people's needs and your focus is how can you help that person, everything else is going to come back to you in spades and buckets anyway. So number 3 is, now you've actually got a job of some kind, like musically I'm talking now. Like you've got onto some kind of gig, some kind of work, whatever you're doing with your creative field, is to do a great job, okay? So you've got through the door now, and now you want to leave something that makes people want to call you back again. That's like being easy to work with, being on time, which is normally early, being prepared, knowing the material, knowing your equipment, doing a good job, and ideally more than a good job, doing a great job, doing a job that they would be happy to call you back for. And it's kind of boils down to being the safe option, the virtuoso path in terms of just being the best of the best to the point where it doesn't matter about whether you're late, whether you're on time, whether you're a nice person to be around. That's reserved for a very small handful of people. And by nature of percentages, chances are it's not going to be you. Not to say it can't be, but chances are it won't be you, and that's not a strategy I would want to rely on for my business. Which leads me on to number 4, which is knowing your business. So often we get into a creative pathway, a creative field, and we don't view it like a business until it's time to pay bills, until rent check comes in, until expenses comes in, and you look at your bank account and you're seeing numbers go in the wrong direction. Only then do you start thinking about your work as a business because you need to, rather than setting up from the off as a business. Look into different models. How can you earn money? Where are people in your field, in the line of work you're doing, where are they making their money? Who has a career path that you would want to emulate? And do you know the financial sides off the back of their path? Like, not everyone's out here making money. A lot of people you think are on amazing gigs are not necessarily making bank in the way that you might think they are. They might be doing well on that one particular show or that particular run, but off the back of that, chances are that person, they've got other sides. They've got other, whether it's other bits of recording or other bits of work. The amount of people that have just flexible jobs around it, you'd be amazed. And it makes a lot of sense. This is not an advert to not see the creative paths as a viable business, but it's just about actually making sure you think about it as a business. What is the service that you're offering that is going to get you paid? How much is that service going to pay you? And, how frequent is that going to be? Where are you going to get that work? How much is it going to cost you to get that work and do the networking, to get in the circles? It's like actually doing the numbers, because you don't have to do them anyway. Once you start doing well enough to pay taxes, you're going to have to know these numbers, because you're going to have to fill out a tax return, which leads us on to our little clickbaity intro. And getting your taxes wrong is not fun. Underestimating your taxes is not fun. I've been there. COVID was a crazy time, and to cut a long story short, in that year I lived off tax money and then had to now pay the taxes on a great couple of years after that, and those taxes I lived off back then. So the amount of money that's come out of my account over the last 24 months on taxes is crazy when I just think to that now. So tip number 5 would then be put aside 20 to 30%. I'd say 30% because here in the UK anyway, kind of base tax rate, it works in brackets, but you might put away 20%, but then you forget about the national insurance contributions, and then there's a couple extra grand or so, or more or less. I don't know exactly how it works. I'm not an accountant, so go speak to a financial advisor or an accountant to run the numbers yourself. But yeah, that national insurance can easily add a couple grand or more to your tax bill than what you thought it would be, and you got to pay it. So the one thing I would advise myself or someone who's now in that student world now, that musician's world, maybe about to graduate, or maybe just taking it seriously for the first time in a while, would be any paycheck you get, music related or just freelance related, put 30% aside into a different account, even if it's a little account that you get a bit of interest on, because you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it, and it's better that you have more sitting in that account than you need than the other way around. Okay, so to recap, the 5 kind of tips for starting a career as a musician: pay your rent first, whatever that looks like, whether that's getting a job, just know that your rent's covered. That's big number 1. Get networking. Networking is outside of being good. Okay, so we're going to assume that you're good, and we're going to assume that it goes without saying that you're going to be putting work in to improve your skills and become a better player and better at what it is that you do. Outside of that, networking is going to be the biggest mover. Doing a great job once you've got the work, and that includes professionalism outside of just the playing, in terms of being on time, being prepared, and just being nice to be around. And then knowing a business, treating it like a business. As creatives, as artists, we are most guilty for ignoring the business side because we don't want to think numbers, we don't want to think of ourselves as a product. But if you're ever going to complain about not getting paid for something, you need to view it as a business. Otherwise, it's a long day. There are decisions that make sense from a bragging point of view, from a CV clout point of view, that don't make sense as a business decision. So you kind of have to weigh up what's more important to you there. But if that's a choice, make it a choice that you make, basically, is what I'm saying. Make it a choice that you make, whether you're going to do something for the artistic pursuit of that, or if you're doing it for a business. And if you're doing something for clout, fine, do it for clout, but know you're doing it for that and not the money. But if we're going to talk about money, then we need to make things a business decision from the start. And then the 5th tip is put aside 30% from every gig paycheck for taxes, because it's gonna hit. It will, man. If you're blessed enough to start earning through music, that tax bill consideration is going to be considerably larger, and you're not going to be able to leave it to the last minute to make it work. And it's sad because it's something that is not taught in schools. If you end up in that situation, I mean, it is your fault, but not so much that you're ignorant to it, because no one's taught you. Who's taught you that information? Who has taught you how to set up a sole trader business or even limited company and to do your taxes? That's not a class at school. Maybe if you study business, you go into it a little bit, but I would even argue that a lot of people who studied business don't have actual grasp on the practicalities of real life running it as a sole trader or even limited company. You know, learning from a textbook is very different to real life applications, and the rules change. But this is why I'd recommend spending, if you're going to go into this or even consider doing it as a career, you see your creative endeavor as potentially a main or secondary source of income for yourself. Spend 20 hours on YouTube on the rules about setting up a business, setting up as a sole trader, and the taxes, how that works in your country, wherever you are. I'm based in the UK, if you can't tell. But yeah, spend 20 hours on YouTube, go through, looking through resources and working out how that works, and decide if that's something you're prepared to do yourself or not. If it's not, find somewhere that's going to employ you and get a job done.